Morning, everyone. Welcome to Destination Truth. I'm a little angry this morning just because I've been kind of watching to see what kind of public outrage happens from the memo being released and what we learned from it. And I mean, fuck, man. Like, libertarians and people on the right in general need to unite over this and say enough is a fuck enough. They need to do something. You need to be publicly outraged. You need to band together. You need to reform Tea Party groups. You need to riot. I'm serious. It's been like since the Revolutionary War, since people, you know, smart K-selected type folks. If you don't know what K-selected means, maybe watch our R versus K Gene Wars video from Stefan Molyneux to explain that. But, you know, K-selected people are people that are educated, pretty much, that aren't prone to overpopulating and over-reproducing, but want to invest a lot of resources into their children, versus R-selected people who don't really give an F. They just want to spread their semen everywhere and have as many babies out of wedlock and not raise those babies because they don't care. And thus, that creates a welfare state. Anyways, also importing millions of immigrants that will always vote the same way because the left is so insane that they know they can't get anyone in this country to vote for them for the most part. I mean, the majority of the people already here will not vote for the left anymore. They are unsavable, they are deplorable, they are irredeemable. And after the release of the memo, we know that there's collusion at the highest ranks of government in this country, and the FBI is insanely corrupt, and James Comey should stand on trial for treason. And so should Hillary Clinton, let's face it, or someone running her campaign, if we can't blame it on her specifically because she's an old nice lady that doesn't know, she doesn't know anything. She can play dumb and say, what? You mean wipe it with a cloth? When in regards to wiping her servers clean, when she was asked in a congressional hearing, she said, what? You mean like with a cloth? So, yeah, they let her play stupid. They let her. Probably because of the same level of corruption in our government that is allowing this amount of collusion between different parts of government. Nonetheless, I don't see the outrage, I don't see protests, I don't see riots, I don't see anyone picketing or doing anything. I want to see a picket line outside of the FBI buildings. I don't care which ones, I really don't. It doesn't really matter. I mean, we need to call for an outright destruction of the FBI and a reconstruction of them. It's just, when the corruption's this bad, people need to pay. People need to suffer. People need to go to prison. People need to stand trial. Someone is to blame for this kind of bullshit, evil corruption in the shadows, where you're allowed to not only wiretap your political adversaries for no good reason other than invented ones by a company like Fusion GPS, which was paid for by the FBI, by Hillary's campaign, by other members of the left or the Democratic Party, paid by so many people, it's really disgusting. I think it even was receiving money from George Soros himself. It's disgusting. It's despicable. And the fact that it's allowed, and that the FBI was allowing this evidence to be used without having verified anything about it, just shows that there are people that did know, and those people didn't say anything for what I do believe to be a very intentional reason. There's intent behind what they were doing, and the intent was a fail-safe, a backup, a plan B to Donald Trump being inaugurated as the 45th president. So they wanted this random, silly story about Russia to be their backup. to trying to impeach him. And they got everyone in the media, everyone, because everyone in the media works for the left. They're paid. They're paid. Why do you think the news is like 99% group thinking and say the same things, talk the same, report on the same things? Like, if there's scores of videos, as in like hundreds of videos, where they will simply prove to you that because 99% of mainstream media in this country is in fact owned by only 5 corporations, you will see hundreds of news channels, news stations, or news shows saying the exact same phrases all over the country, all over every state, all over the country. They'll say the same phrases because those things were written by the corporate elites at the corporate level, and it trickles down to all their sister companies or subsidiaries and the small newspapers or news outlets or news channels that they own. So those corporations need to be sued for antitrust violations. They're monopolies. All 5 of them have way too much control. They need to suffer. There needs to be public outrage over the memo in general. There needs to be a hell of a lot more support for Donald Trump right now. I think his ratings should go all the way up to 50% because at the very least, you know 2 things for sure. 1, he's carrying through on his campaign promises, and 2, he's innocent. They have tried to dig up anything on this man, anything at all, and they couldn't find jack shit. And so they made it up. They made it up. That not piss you off? That they're allowed to make shit up and actually spread it to just about every news outlet in America and even the world at large, and tell them that Donald's president only because of Russia. Russia did it because he's a Russian double agent. It's such garbage. He's never been there in his life even. What would he... If you're a detective, the first thing you do to solve a crime, look for motive. Who benefits? Who benefits? If he was a Russian spy, who would benefit and how would he benefit? He has nothing in Russia. He doesn't own anything in Russia. He doesn't. So if Russia, for whatever reason, had strings on him, how would he benefit? He's already got all the money he needs. He doesn't need more money. They can't pay him. If you want to get Russian people to be double agents and work for Russia, you talk to people that either A, are corruptible, like Bill Clinton, that just want sex and drugs and really don't care about money that much because they have enough, but he does like power. So, women, drugs, power. Bill Clinton wants that. Great. You can easily buy people like that. Easily. That's why the globalists own him and Hillary. They own them because they're evil people that want power. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. And they are the most corrupt people in the history of the United States. In my opinion, they should stand on trial in a people's court with an unelected judge, an unchosen jury, and see if they can prove their innocence for their hundreds of laws and warmongering and crimes against humanity in different countries, especially Haiti. These fuckers have stolen millions from Haiti, and Haiti has gotten nothing except promises and empty lies and children being stolen away from their parents, or even paid. Their parents were even paid for their children to be taken away by fictitious missionaries. And when the leader of this missionary group was standing trial for human trafficking, because that is what she was doing, she was trafficking these children into the United States for sex, Hillary Clinton helped lessen her sentence. And that woman today, the woman last name, I believe, Seibel, S-I-B-E-L. I forget her name, first name. I think it's Jessica Seibel. I forget. But that same woman is now leading the Child Protective Services in the United States. Do you see what kind of problematic shit is going on in this country? A woman actually stood trial for human trafficking, is now in charge of child services in the United States. What do you think is going to happen to those children? You think they're going to go to loving families? I can guarantee, because I've already seen people talking about it for years, that a good portion of these children go to parents. And I say parents because they're probably not married couples with a father and a mother, but instead maybe a gay couple or an individual, probably individuals. They're adopted, and those children effing disappear. They disappear, and they get murdered probably after being raped for years. If you haven't watched my channel, I would say I used to be, because I really don't like looking into it, but I used to be somewhat of an expert on Pizzagate and what's really going on worldwide behind the scenes in the human trafficking industry and pedophilia in particular. I'm going to try to stay on topic here and just end the video pretty much now with saying that there is not enough outrage from the right. It needs to unite. Libertarians, anyone on the right, it doesn't matter, except Republicans. Fuck you. Republicans, you are just as bad as the Democrats. Many of you are corrupt, evil people. I'm not talking about just citizens. I'm mostly talking about actual government elected politicians, obviously. But by and by, if you're a Republican, I want you to be a libertarian at heart. You better know what liberty stands for and what it means to be a libertarian, because we live in a time where you can't be this confused. You gotta know what's going on. You gotta know what's at stake. Your freedom is at stake. The only thing standing in between all of America and outright communism, a totalitarian regime that would kill millions of people, send libertarians like myself to gulags, is literally our Second Amendment rights. That's not a joke. That's literally, they've been trying to take our guns for years. Don't kid yourself. They've already signed international agreements saying that they will try to disarm the citizenry of the United States of America. They've already signed these papers back when Bill was in office with the UN, or the agreements were with the UN. So, there is a one world government, and they are trying so hard to accelerate their agendas because they know that the time's up. And time's up for me means that people have woken up, and the sleeping giant is just starting to raise its head. And in 2020, when the next election happens, mark my words, it will be either Trump being reelected or probably a civil war. And if there isn't, if the right just quietly and peacefully goes back to sleep and lets its entire country get raped and pillaged by immigrants, I'm a slave. And if you're white, you're basically a slave, because by and by, statistically speaking, you can literally prove that you are a tax slave and that other races, or mostly immigrant groups, are in fact receiving your taxes from a vastly, predominantly white majority, because white people don't take out of the welfare system nearly even a portion of what they put in until they're old. They deserve it. Anyways, I am outraged, and I am upset that I don't see any public outrage in this country. People need to wake up, pick up arms, get in groups of over 1,000 and march and show that you are effing pissed off and that this level of collusion and corruption in this country is not okay, and somebody needs to pay for it, damn it!